Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Baker and I'm going over with you today the book Dragonsong. This is one of my favorite books of all time. My dad gave this to me to read when I was in about 8th, 9th grade or so, and after I read Dragonsong, I read anything and everything I possibly could written by McCaffrey, because I was so enamored with the world that she created and the characters that she created that I couldn't get enough of being on Pern. So I hope you will feel the same way that I do, and I hope that this book opens up a whole new world of reading for you. So first off, I want to give you a little bit of context about the book. The book is actually set in the far future. Even though it's going to feel like it's set in medieval times, it's got a very medieval kind of feel to it. But here's the reason why. The novel takes place on the planet of Pern, and it is this Earth-like planet that was settled by colonists from Earth. And they wish to escape in the far future. Earth is very war-torn and too focused on technology and too focused on things that these people didn't, they wanted a simpler way of life, and that's not what the life on Earth was like. So they wish to escape it. They set up a low-tech agrarian society on a colony in a remote sector of the galaxy. So this is doing an unplug, a complete reboot. And here is what the planet Pern looks like. So this is the planet Pern, and as you can see, it does look a bit like Earth. And this is the thing with science fiction. You have to build in enough of the science and enough realistic elements in order for it to be believable to readers. So we have a northern hemisphere and we have a southern hemisphere. And in the book, you'll notice this map aligns with the northern hemisphere of the planet Pern. Okay? Now, if you were to read the foreword, you would get all this crazy information about the red star and thread. Okay? So, the foreword. Again, a lot of science in here. So, they're doing astronomy. So, this is very scientific based. It's also fiction because they're making it up, but they're basing some of it in real life in science. So, there is this erratic red star that does not follow the orbit with the other planets. And when Pern and the red star align, it causes these spores to fall from the sky called thread. So just think acid rain. And they devour all sorts of organic matter. Now the indigenous life on Pern is a bit different too. There's some mammals, but you'll notice the Weyrs, it's different, okay? So here's what happened long ago, and if you ever read the story Dragon's Dawn, genetic scientists, when they first came to Pern, they didn't know about the red star and they didn't know about the thread. And so they bred dragons from the native fire lizards as a way to combat the thread of that would fall from the sky every 200 years. I know, just go with it. Just go with it, and it'll all make sense. Okay, so here we have the Rookbot system, and you have their star that is the center of it. There's the planet Pern, and then here is the red star with its erratic orbit. And that every 200 years, or turns, because that's what they're calling it, no different than like centuries for us, but centuries happen every 100 years. We have the red star passes through this asteroid belt, intersects with Pern's orbit, and then thread falls from space onto Pern. Just go with it, okay? All right, now you'll notice that the structure of the society on Pern is a bit different. It is kind of like medieval. You have your different levels, okay? So we have the Weyrs of the Dragowriders. Each Weyr protects an assigned area. They teleport, they can char thread in the air with with fire, and the Dragowriders are bonded with their particular dragon. Again, just go with it, okay? You also have the holds, which shelter the majority of the population. They are built of stone, or they're built into natural forming areas like caves or old volcanoes, okay? And then you have the crafts, and this is where some of the technical and artistic skill is practiced. You have metal workers, you have animal breeding, fishing, mining, and then the harpers, who are the storytellers in each society. Okay? So this is Bend and Weir. Bend and Weir would be a place where the dragons live with their dragon riders, and built into an old volcano. So they're not cave people, but they are definitely, they're making the best of their situation. Okay, so interesting thing. We don't really have a villain in this story. There is no character that is really, really the villain. Okay? And McCaffrey herself, she had a lot of disdain for violence. And so she structures this society on Pern to represent that. Okay? So the dragon riders fight against threat, not against human antagonistics. Okay? It's the natural phenomena that is the menace. Okay? And all three estates prefer to settle conflicts through discussion and consensus. So you have the weirmen, you have the lord and holders, and you have all the master craftsmen who talk peacefully about things. She's an author. So Anne McCaffrey is creating the world that she wants and she wants to live in. No different than some of your authors create those dystopic fiction of Hunger Games and Divergent. Okay? So character behavior matters more than appearance. So you'll see that they're not materialistic. And isn't this ironic? This is so opposite of what you might thought this class would be like. All tech focused, running around with our cell phones and our computers and our iPads. Yeah, this is an all unplug. Okay, so just to give you an idea about the dragons of Pern, you have this scale. The largest dragon is a queen on down to the small greens. And you can see we have humans at 6 foot tall. You can see that they are like 18 feet tall, 3 times a human. Do the math. All right, so our story centers on the main character of MENOLLY. And it's no coincidence that her name, MENOLLY, looks a lot like the word melody. She is the daughter of Half Circle Seahold's leader. Her father, Janus. That name is also representative of Roman mythology because he is the Roman god of beginnings, transitions, gates, doorways, endings, and time. So you're going to see how her dad tries to, close the door, metaphorically speaking, or guarding the door, no different than like a threshold guardian. Okay? When we open the book, she's 14 years old. She's the youngest child, and the Seahold is one of it's a utilitarian society. Everybody has to have their purpose. Everybody has to have a job. And you'll see that MENOLLY, she's tall, she's big boned, and she just feels kind of awkward and out of place. So she's trying to find her way and where she fits with in society. So here is where Half Circle Seahold is located in reference to the planet of Pern. It's over here on this peninsula here. And this peninsula, we have the Southern Sea, we have Narot Bay, and then Half Circle Seahold is located right here. You also recognize on here the Dragon Stones is another location that will be talked about as well in this book. Okay? But notice how the location reinforces the society. They're cut off from a lot of other areas. Here's their other hold is Karun Hold, but how do you get there? You have to sail across the bay to get there, and it's pretty big. So that sense of isolation, how does that impact the way a society or community functions? Keep that in mind. Okay, so MENOLLY, she's expected to carry out the usual female duties, of chores and whatnot, but her heart soars elsewhere. She wants to do other things, and she's very musical, and she's an artist, but when she's in a family of workers and a society or community, this community feels this way. Please keep in mind, just Half Circle Hold feels this way. MENOLLY feels like a misfit because she's an artist in a community of stolid folk. Okay, here's MENOLLY at the Dragonstones. You'll recognize this when you get to it in the book. But what I want you to look for while reading, I want you to look for the usual stuff. You're not getting chapter questions. You're not getting a vocab list from me. I want you to think about the craft of writing and how an author creates a world that seems authentic and realistic. Okay? Even if science fiction is not your thing, I want you to just go with it. Just go with it. And just keep reading. That's all I want. So, look for the usual stuff that English teachers tell you to look for. Look for examples of conflict. Look for the hero journey steps. They're in there. I promise you that. Also look for archetypes. They're in there too. Looks for different themes and motifs. You'll see patterns emerge. We'll talk about that as well. So you want to also keep an eye up the society of half circle hold versus bend and weir. How are these two communities different? Pay careful attention to the role of harpers. Look at vocab and context. You'll spot some big SAT words in there. Just keep an eye out for them. Make a list if you want. But again, we're not doing the usual things that you may expect. Look for family dynamics, love and dreams versus responsibility is a theme, and then also gender roles, how girls are supposed to act a certain way, okay? Also, keep in mind this stuff. So think about this too. How this quote by G.K. Chesterton relates to both Dragonsong and Hobbit. Fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten. That's easy to think about with The Hobbit and Smaug. But how does Anne McCaffrey flip the dragon motif from all these other stories? Think about that, how she makes it her own. And finally, the last things I want you to think about are how does McCaffrey, again, create that believable story despite being in the fantasy and sci-fi genre? Which world is more believable? Is Aberrat more believable or is Pern more believable? How does MENOLLY compare to, no, we didn't read about Pip. Maybe you want to read about Kino or Wana would be a good idea. How does she compare to MENOLLY? How does MENOLLY compare to Candy? How does MENOLLY compare to Bilbo, our main characters? And just think about this. What elements of storytelling are found in all the books you've read so far this year for this class? You've read quite a few. Hobbit, Pearl, Aberrat, and Dragonsong. I hope you enjoy this book. I've posted resources in the Edmodo group for you. Please use them. Click, click, click. Share things that you find because I will gladly share with you. And I look forward to discussing this book in more detail.